Hi, today I'm explaining about another assignment in Photoshop. Okay, yesterday we did this brochure design. Okay, so brochure 1, 2, 3, 4 pages finished already. The next concept is digital painting. Yeah, this is really very important for the animation student. Okay, VFX and gaming student, because in digital painting only we create concept arts. Okay, character designs and whatever the digital backgrounds and all we use with Photoshop digital painting only. Okay, but to create this we need the Wacom tablet, pen tablet compulsory we have to use. Okay, so particularly this subject I'll explain in class only. Okay, so then next what? Yes, we successfully finished our Photoshop program. Okay, suppose if you have any doubts in Photoshop assignments or Photoshop tools, whatever the anything in Photoshop, just you can ask me. Okay, so today just for time being I'm starting the Illustrator intro, and I'll explain the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. So this is very important you must have to understand the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, yes, so generally Photoshop is a raster based program. Raster based means what? If you zoom more than their size, actual size, this is actual size, okay, and 4 times you can enlarge this, it is pixelating. Okay, so this is a raster program. Okay, a pixel based, and the Illustrator is a vector based program, and you create the small size of the anything, drawing or sketch, whatever, and you can enlarge into any size. Suppose here the 4 times. Okay, zoom this, and without losing the quality, here the same quality maintaining here also, but here when you zoom this more than that actual size, you are losing the quality of the subject object. Okay, so Photoshop is a raster based program, pixel based program, and here your files, your images, your works depends on the resolution. Okay, so Photoshop is a resolution dependent, and here the vector based program like Illustrator, it is resolution independent. Okay, so give small size and you can enlarge this without losing the quality, you will get the same. Okay, here two fabulous programs utilized strongly by artists is Adobe Photoshop. By artists are Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, these two, Photoshop and Illustrator, these two programs can used by these artists, designers. These two programs have a lot in common, but their differences are bigger than their similarities. Photoshop is based on pixels, while Illustrator works using vectors. Just now I explained okay, the pixels and vectors. If you see this Photoshop and Illustrator, Photoshop is a raster based and uses pixels to create images. We know that the pixels, dots, by these dots, pixels, images can combine, can create by Photoshop. Photoshop is designed for editing and creating photos or raster based art. Understand this? Photoshop is designed for editing. That is the reason mostly we use Photoshop. Even in when you use this Illustrator or whatever the software you are using, for the editing of the picture, editing of the something, or editing of the whatever your object, you must get it into Photoshop software. Then you can remove the unnecessary backgrounds, unnecessary whatever the things are there, you can remove by Photoshop only. Okay, and creating photos are raster based art. Okay, after removing your backgrounds, unnecessary things from the original picture, then you can add all the filters, effects, and blend shapes and layer styles and a combination of layers, whatever you can combine them. Okay, you will create the raster based art. Okay, when the program was developed, it was for photographs. Understand this? Photoshop actually designed only for the photographers. At the starting time, when they developed this Photoshop program, only used for the photographers. Photoshop, the name given by, okay, for the only the photographers. But over time the program has grown to help all kind of artists to do many different kinds of work. Okay, then years passing, the program was developed by the developers, and slowly the other people also adapted this, mostly for the digital painting artist, web graphic artist, the graphic design artist, and photographers, and editors, photo studio people. Okay, and all the people, various the people from the different backgrounds, different sectors. Okay, widely they're using this program. Okay, so now Photoshop is known to create interface designs. We know that interface designs, web pages, banner ads, video graphics, and the original use of editing and creating images for print. Okay, so for creating for the printer, we edit and we can combine them in a your design. Okay, so interface designs, so web designers for the web usage purpose, so they use this Photoshop. Okay, so the same way banner designs, you can create web banners, whatever the banners you can create. Okay, and video graphics, in video graphics also they use, but for the purpose of creating the text and creating the graphics for the video editing, we use this. Okay, right. So Photoshop is known to be able to do so much and be so easy to learn that it is looked at as a one-stop shop. But Photoshop is not the best program for all types of artwork and design. It's very important. You can create whatever the work you can create, and you can design, and for the print purpose we use this software, but it's not the best program for all types of artwork and design. See, each program has their own the strength and minuses. The Photoshop strength is the best for editing purpose. You can edit pictures, remove backgrounds, you can add effects, add filters, add blend shapes and layer styles. You can combine them all and take it into another software. Okay, but it is not good for all type of artwork design. Okay, so that is the reason we use Illustrator also. Illustrator works off vectors. I explained you clearly. Vectors mathematically defined by the shapes. The shapes are also drawing tools, straight lines, curves. Okay, and the vector shapes, all we use mathematically defined by all these. Okay, we can combine them into shape and we create anything. So these are points used to create perfectly smooth lines. Okay, so there are points, anchors are there, okay, the paths are there. You can create by the points used to create perfectly smooth lines. This program is for creating and editing vector based work such as graphics, logos and other design elements. Okay, so vectors are scalable images that can be sized as small or as large or you need them to be, but look the same when it comes to clarity and resolution. Okay, yes, so that is the reason the high quality printing you are expecting something. Okay, so then we can use this Illustrator. Suppose you are planning a very big huge hoarding or a big banner, okay, you must have to use this Illustrator other than the Photoshop here. Okay, so in Illustrator you can create a small size, you can enlarge it into the big size hoarding, so without losing your quality in design will get as easily. Okay, so maintain the same clarity and resolution, that is Illustrator. Okay, then Illustrator is not ideal for creating multi-page documents, and using the program this way would create some drawbacks. Just now I told you every program, every software has its own plus and minus points. The Illustrator minus points for what? So you can create the you cannot create multi-page documents, number of documents, number of pages you cannot create. For that they developed their another program that is called InDesign, but InDesign is not in our course, purely it is in the graphic design. Okay, so anyway, just I'm explaining the difference only here, just you can understand that. Okay, so Illustrator doesn't have a way to set up master pages the way that InDesign does. So InDesign has the master page page setup is there in InDesign, but in Illustrator it doesn't have that way to set up master pages. Okay, this is a necessary tool when you are building a documents that use templates. So this is a necessary tool when you are building documents that use templates. Okay, so Illustrator also doesn't allow you to automate page numbers, so there will be no automate page numbers. This is another feature in InDesign supports. Yes, the InDesign can support that. Okay, so which can be especially useful when dealing with the larger documents. Suppose you are planning for a book, magazine design, there mostly preferably we use InDesign only, because in Illustrator the lack of these facilities, we don't use them. Good. Next come to Photoshop. Photoshop is a bad program to use when creating logos. That's it. Really good. So that is the reason we are not using Photoshop for creating logos, because logos, if you create logos in Photoshop, what will happen? The same logo, suppose if I want to use in large scale of your hoarding, when you zoom it that size, you won't get the same kind of the quality or clarity in that. It can pixelate. So we don't use bad program for creating logos. It will do nothing. It will do nothing but cost you time and money, right? Waste of your money and time also. Creating logo in Photoshop cannot be enlarged or manipulated in the same manner that an Illustrator basic logo can. That's it. That is the difference. Type will print the type. So this is sheet. Yes. Type will print clearest at vector based rendering. It's very important. Okay, the Adobe Creative Cloud package has many different programs to create different art in separate practices. Of course, they created the different apps, applications for the usage of different people. Okay, if you use this Adobe Illustrator, you'll get the clarity in text when you print it, the clarity and crystal, the clarity after rendering that. Okay, so Adobe, they developed different packages for the use of the different practices, different people. Okay, here yes, here we have some doubts. Do I need Illustrator if I have Photoshop? This is good question. Suppose already you are having Photoshop, but do I need Illustrator? Okay, if I have Photoshop, the question it is it all depends on your creative objectives, definitely. Okay, so if you want to create illustrations, then yes, you would need to get Adobe Illustrator. This software works with vectors as opposed to Photoshop that works with raster files. Yes, we have clarity on that. So even you are having the Photoshop, but you would have to use the Illustrator. Okay, when you are creating some illustrations for the web art, creating of infographics, okay, this patterns. So if you want to create them, definitely you would have to use Illustrator, even though you are having your Photoshop. Then do graphic designers use Photoshop? Then again, the question. Photoshop is one of the go-to tools that designers use to manipulate photos and create graphics. It contains many features for photos such as cropping, editing, color correcting, and resizing. A designer can also create and edit graphics in Photoshop. Okay, so do graphic designers use Photoshop? Means yes, they use. There they manipulate their photos, remove their backgrounds, edit them, and color correction they give. Okay, and crop their photos and edit their photos and resize and improve the picture quality, and then get it into Illustrator. Then combination of the both the Photoshop and Illustrator we use. Okay, so that's the reason graphic designer compulsory they use Photoshop. Yeah, see here, most used by designers Adobe Illustrator. They prefer vector graphics. The artists mostly they use Photoshop to create art. Okay, the pixel art for digital painting. Okay, for the concept art, storyboarding, and for creating the comic art, creating comic pages, comic arts. Okay, and for creating the poses. Okay, character sketches. Mostly artists they love to use Photoshop. Okay, as well as this Illustrator. But if you are an artist come designer, you must have to use both of them. Okay, so this is a simple introduction about the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, and so suppose this is Illustrator. So actually I want to start this today, but anyway I introduced this Illustrator as I have another software. See, this is, compare with the Photoshop, the both are coming from the same family. Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. These are the both softwares are coming from the same family, Adobe family. The similarities are there. Okay, some shortcuts or some commands or some uses of the program. It has the similarity. Okay, but I'll explain clearly about this Illustrator in the next class. Okay, so get ready and you can install your software as early as possible. Okay, so then only you will understand. Okay, so just you can practice everything, and if you have any doubt you can please ask me. Thank you.